A true story of rescue and connection. A German shepherd was discovered in an abandoned property, so traumatized he wouldn't let anyone near him. For months, he huddled in the corner of his kennel, trembling while potential adopters passed him by. But everything changed the day one unexpected visitor walked into the shelter. This is the true story of Shadow, and the woman who saw what no one else could. Riverside County Animal Shelter, California, July 2021. The shelter was operating beyond capacity. Pandemic-era pet surrenders had flooded the facility. Director Marlene Gutierrez, a 20-year veteran in animal welfare, watched the chaos unfold with quiet exhaustion. "We have absolutely no space," she muttered to Animal Control Officer Luis Vasquez as he carried in yet another crate. "The euthanasia list already has 15 dogs this week." Luis shook his head. "You'll want to make room for this one, Marlene. Property foreclosure in Indio. Owner walked away months ago from the looks of it." Inside the crate was a severely emaciated German shepherd, maybe 3 years old. He had survived off a leaking garden hose and scraps he found in the overgrown yard. His collar had embedded into his neck, requiring emergency surgery. Dr. Caitlin Chen, the lead vet, documented a long list of issues. Advanced malnutrition, body score 2-9. Severe dehydration, multiple untreated wounds, hookworms, ear infections, pressure sores. "Physically, we can rehabilitate him," no, she told Marlene. "But I'm concerned about his psychological state. He's exhibiting extreme fear responses. Unlike many rescued dogs who still crave human touch, this one, tentatively named Shadow, showed only terror. Any approach sent him shaking violently into the farthest corner of his kennel. He wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't eat if anyone was near, wouldn't move for hours." "It's like he's shut down completely," said behavioral specialist Kelsey Martinez after her third failed attempt to reach him. For 2 weeks, Shadow remained frozen in trauma. The staff tried every trick they knew. Still, he wouldn't engage. Security cameras showed he only moved at night, pacing in tight, anxious circles when the shelter was silent. "We're running out of options," Marlene admitted in an early August meeting. "If we can't find a rescue group by Friday, we may need to make a difficult decision." Thursday afternoon, Kelsey made one final attempt. She didn't approach the kennel. Instead, she sat cross-legged in the hallway, back against the opposite wall, and began reading aloud from a paperback novel. She made no effort to look at Shadow, just let her voice fill the space. Nearly an hour passed. As she stood to leave, she noticed something. Shadow's eyes were tracking her movement. Their gazes met, just for a moment. "I need 48 more hours," she told Marlene. "There's still someone in there." Friday morning. Claire Winslow hadn't planned to visit the shelter. At 34, she was a physical therapist at Eisenhower Medical Center, recently divorced, and just settling into a small rental cottage in Palm Desert. "I'm just dropping off some towels and blankets," she explained to a volunteer. "My mom used to volunteer here." Mike Russell, the weekend supervisor, overheard it. "Thanks for the donation. Would you like a quick tour? We've made some upgrades since your mom's time." Claire hesitated, then nodded. "I've got a few minutes." They walked through the adoption areas. Playful puppies, friendly adults. Claire smiled, offered kind words, but nothing sparked a connection. "That's most of our adoption-ready pets," Mike said. "Beyond here are our medical and behavior cases." "Mind if we peek?" Claire asked. "My mom always had a soft spot for the tough ones." Mike agreed, but warned her to keep back from the kennels. When they reached the end of the corridor, he paused. "This is our most difficult case. German Shepherd, found abandoned. He's been here almost 3 weeks and hasn't left that corner. No aggression, just complete withdrawal." Claire's eyes settled on the shadowed figure. Shadow was barely visible, tucked deep into the corner, amber eyes watching them. "What's his story?" she asked softly. "Yeah. We don't know. Looks like prolonged abuse and isolation. He won't engage with anyone." Without asking, Claire sat cross-legged on the floor, her back to the wall. the same position Kelsey had taken the day before. "What are you doing?" Mike asked. "I don't know," Claire whispered. "Just giving him space." Mike raised an eyebrow, but let her be. "I'll be back in 15. 10 minutes passed. Shadow didn't move, but Claire noticed something. He was watching her, not moving toward her, but not trembling either, just watching. When Mike returned, she said, "I'd like to come back tomorrow." He looked surprised. "These cases take months." "I know, I just feel like I should come back." As she stood to leave, Shadow didn't retreat. He shifted slightly, his eyes following her. Something had changed, something subtle but real. Saturday morning, Claire returned with a folding chair, a book, and a small Bluetooth speaker. Soft classical music played gently, something she used with her most anxious patients. "I wasn't sure you'd really come back," said Kelsey at the desk. "I wasn't either," Claire admitted, "but I couldn't stop thinking about him." They returned to Shadow's kennel. The shepherd was in his usual spot, but his ears perked when he saw Claire. "That's interesting," Kelsey whispered. "He's unusually alert to your arrival." Claire sat up 6 feet away at an angle, not facing the kennel directly. She read her book aloud in a soft, steady voice. Later, she worked quietly on her laptop. For hours, she simply existed in his presence. By noon, Shadow had moved to the middle of the kennel. When others passed by, he returned to the corner. But with Claire, he stayed closer. "That's remarkable progress, Kelsey said. Claire didn't respond with excitement. She just smiled and kept reading. By mid-afternoon, it happened. Shadow approached the front of the kennel, not all the way, but close. His eyes met hers with something that wasn't fear. Slowly, Claire adjusted her chair, just a little closer. Shadow stayed. When Marlene came by, she stopped in disbelief. "I've never seen him this far from the corner," she whispered. "What did she do?" "Nothing," Kelsey replied. "That's what's so remarkable. She just existed." Before leaving, Claire asked a simple question. "Can I come back tomorrow?" Marlene didn't hesitate. "Claire, absolutely. I'm adjusting his status in our system right now. No decisions will be made about his future until we see where this goes." As Claire packed up her things, Shadow retreated to his corner, but the movement seemed less frantic now, more deliberate. Their eyes met briefly as she turned to leave. Claire softly, "See you tomorrow." What no one yet realized was that Shadow's response to Claire wasn't random. There was something specific about her that had penetrated his defenses, something that would soon reveal itself in an extraordinary way. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire visited Shadow every day, rearranging her work schedule to spend at least 2 hours at the shelter. Each day brought subtle but significant progress. By the end of the first week, Shadow would approach the kennel door when Claire arrived, though he'd still retreat if anyone else appeared. Kelsey, watching security footage. I've never seen bonding happen this quickly with a traumatized dog, especially one who showed such profound shutdown behaviors. Claire couldn't explain it either. Claire, it feels like we've met before, like he somehow recognizes me, though I know that's impossible. By day 10, Shadow was accepting treats from Claire's hand through the kennel bars, a milestone that brought tears to Marlene's eyes. "Director, we need to start thinking about next steps. Would you consider fostering him?" Claire hesitated. "Claire, my landlord doesn't allow pets in my rental, but I'm looking for a new place anyway. If I found somewhere pet-friendly, I'd consider it." That afternoon, while sitting with Shadow, Claire received a phone call from a colleague at the medical center. Dr. Nathan Wells, a neurologist, was looking for a physical therapist for a special case. A veteran with a traumatic brain injury and PTSD who needed home-based therapy. Dr. Wells, phone. "The VA approved specialized care, but he's refusing to come to the hospital. Would you be willing to do home visits 3 times a week? I know it's outside your normal schedule." Claire agreed to meet the patient the following day, scheduling the appointment for early morning so she could still visit Shadow afterward. The next morning, Claire arrived at a modest ranch house in La Quinta. A VA social worker met her outside. Social worker. Just so you're prepared, Captain Jordan has been through extensive trauma. IED explosion in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Physically, he's recovered well. But the PTSD and TBI have been challenging. He's withdrawn from almost all social contact. Claire nodded, familiar with such cases from her previous work at the VA hospital in San Diego. Inside, a man in his mid-30s sat in a wheelchair by the window. Muscular and otherwise healthy-looking, his posture was tense, his expression guarded. He acknowledged Claire with just a brief nod. Social worker. Captain Jordan, this is Claire Winslow, the physical therapist Dr. Wells recommended. Claire approached slowly, her movements calm and predictable. Claire, good morning, Captain Jordan. It's nice to meet you. For a moment he studied her intently. Then, unexpectedly, his expression shifted. Captain Jordan, have we met before? Claire, I don't think so. I moved to the area fairly recently. The session proceeded professionally. Claire assessed his mobility and explained the therapy plan. Captain Jordan remained reserved but cooperative. Unusually so, according to the social worker. Social worker, whispering. He hasn't engaged that well with any provider since I took his case. Later that afternoon, sitting outside Shadow's kennel, Claire noticed something odd. She had worn the same clothes from her morning appointment, and Shadow seemed especially interested in sniffing her shoes, the hem of her pants. On impulse, she asked Kelsey, Claire, has Shadow had any history with military personnel that you know of? Kelsey looked surprised. Kelsey, we don't know anything about his background. Why, Claire, just wondering. Shadow continued to investigate her scent with unusual intensity. 2 days later, Claire arrived at Captain Jordan's house for their second session. As she approached the door, she heard barking from inside, ferocious, desperate barking. The social worker met her outside, looking stressed. Social worker. Rough day. Nightmares last night. He mentioned a dog. Apparently he worked with a military dog in Afghanistan. The PTSD episode seems connected to losing the dog during the explosion. Claire's heart began to race. Claire, did he mention what kind of dog? Social worker. A German shepherd named Shadow. Claire could barely focus during the session. Her mind raced. Could it be the same dog? It seemed impossible. Yet something gnawed at her. Claire, softly, your dog in Afghanistan, what happened to him? Captain Jordan's face darkened. Jordan's Shadow was a specialized search dog, not officially mine. He belonged to the military, but we worked together for 2 years. After the IED, I was evacuated immediately. They told me later that Shadow ran off, likely disoriented. Never found. He paused, voice tightening. Jordan, I requested to stay and search for him, but my injuries were too severe. Claire, what did he look like? Jordan, German shepherd, black and tan, scar on his right shoulder from an earlier mission. He looked at her, puzzled. Jordan, why all the questions? Claire took a breath. Claire, this might sound crazy, but I've been visiting a German shepherd at the county shelter. He was found abandoned, extremely traumatized. No one can get near him except me. Jordan's expression remained skeptical. Jordan, done? Lots of German shepherds end up in shelters. Claire, this one has a scar on his right shoulder. The change in Jordan's face was instantaneous. Shock, disbelief, hope, tempered by doubt. Jordan, that's not possible. Shadow was in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Claire, military dogs sometimes get brought back and adopted out. Or maybe he was shipped back for medical treatment and got lost in the system. It happens. Jordan's hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair. Jordan, do you have a picture? Claire showed him several photos she'd taken at the shelter. Jordan studied them, his breathing quickening. Jordan, I can't tell for sure, but the markings look right. Claire, there's one way to find out.